The big question now is whether Van Zandt is really the boogeyman as Blake Lively and her attorneys claim. A heated exchange that appeared in court late last night and continued this morning ended with a major thud. The judge denied the motion to compel because Wayfair failed to follow proper procedure. Instead of first meeting and conferring with the other side, they went directly to the court. Even though the motion was denied, the back and forth revealed more details about the so-called Van Zandt sham. These details raise more doubts about what Blake and her team are really doing. Officially, they deny involvement, but behind the scenes they are connected. A separate law firm is fronting the case, while Blake and Ryan continue to resist appearing at the deposition scheduled for Monday regarding Van Zandt and the origins of this lawsuit. Attorney Kevin Fritz, representing Wayfair, argued in court that Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds should be compelled to testify. He sought confirmation that they could be forced to explain the full relationship between Van Zandt and Stephanie Jones. His claim was that Van Zandt and Jones were coordinating together, pointing out that Jones seemed unusually quick to hand over private information to a mysterious shell company in New York through a lawsuit without even objecting to the subpoena. The counterclaims add more complexity. Ms. Abel alleges that just before leaving her job at Jones Works, her phone was seized and its contents downloaded without consent. According to her, Stephanie Jones shared private communications with the Lively parties as early as August 21st and continued to access her texts afterward. She claims those stolen messages were passed on to Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and publicist Leslie Sloan in an attempt to harm her. Ms. Abel further argues that Lively conspired with the Jones parties to obtain her data under the pretense of a legal process. On September 27, 2024, Blake used her company Van Zandt to file a lawsuit in New York State against unnamed defendants. That lawsuit alleged breaches of vague oral or written agreements. Within days, Van Zandt issued a subpoena demanding documents tied to the film It Ends With Us, as well as sexual harassment and retaliation claims connected to production. Issues not even mentioned in the actual lawsuit filing. Jones then handed over Abel's private communications to Van Zandt. Later, those communications were included in Lively's legal pleadings. The Van Zandt lawsuit was quietly discontinued in December 2024, the same month those materials appeared in the case. What Kevin Fritz wanted was clarity on privileged disputes and deposition testimony. He argued that through the use of corporate subpoenas, the defense was avoiding accountability. But with the motion denied, the case now hinges on how much weight the court gives to Abel's claims of stolen data, collusion, and misuse of the legal system. The courtroom drama around Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds just keeps getting messier. Wayfair's lawyers argued that Van Zandt should send a representative to answer direct questions about the lawsuit. But the problem is no one even knows who this representative will be. They refuse to answer anything before September 27, 2024, and they are objecting on multiple grounds. The whole thing feels like a mask show. Van Zandt is pretending to be an independent corporation, while in reality, it looks like nothing more than a shell hiding the true players. Everyone knows the people most connected to this fight are Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively. Yet instead of showing up themselves, they are sending lawyers to take the heat. Van Zandt tried to defend itself in response letters claiming Wayfair was lying and exaggerating. They accused the defense of using the court docket to spin a false narrative and generate headlines. They insisted they always intended to comply with the deposition and painted Wayfair's motion as unnecessary drama. But the judge wasn't buying it. The motion was dismissed not because Van Zandt was right, but because Wayfair failed to follow the technical rules of procedure. That means Kevin Fritz and his team can file again if Van Zandt keeps stonewalling. The deeper issue is Van Zandt's subpoena. The lawsuit they filed had nothing to do with the film It Ends With Us. Nothing about Justin Baldoni. Nothing about sexual harassment. Nothing about retaliation. Yet Van Zandt demanded information from Jones Works directly tied to that very movie and those very claims. Wayfair called this proof that the lawsuit was never legitimate. Their point was simple. You cannot demand discovery on issues unrelated to your actual claims. That is abuse of the legal process. And why did Stephanie Jones hand over so much without even objecting? What business owner does that unless they already had some secret arrangement? To Wayfair, the answer is clear. This was all about legitimizing stolen data. By funneling Abel's private communications through a fake lawsuit, they could make it look like Blake Lively obtained the material legally. In reality, it was just another layer in a sham designed to cover tracks. The emotions in this case are heavy. On one side, Abel says her privacy was violated. On the other, Hollywood power players hide behind corporate masks and legal technicalities. The question is whether the court will finally pull that mask off. The fight in court over Van Zandt's role is turning into a tug-of-war over technicalities and timelines. Wayfair argued that the subpoena covered documents and testimony dating back to January 1st, 2022. But Van Zandt pushed back, saying the only relevant period began in September 2024 when the New York lawsuit was filed. On the surface, Van Zandt claimed they weren't refusing to answer questions about earlier dates. They insisted they would cooperate, designate a corporate witness, and testify as required. But in reality, their objections were full of legal shields. Words like relevance, privilege, were product over breadth and burden. It felt less like cooperation and more like a strategy to stall. Their response accused Wayfair of creating a fake dispute for the press. They said the defense was spinning a baseless story about some secret relationship between Van Zandt, Stephanie Jones, and Jones Works. In Van Zandt's words, this was nothing but a media play. But Kevin Fritz wasn't buying it. He argued that Wayfair had every right to push forward. Why? Because Van Zandt still hadn't confirmed who their corporate representative would be. Every name they floated was an attorney. No one directly tied to the company. No one who could truly answer questions. Just more masks. Just more smoke. The judge ended up denying the motion, not because Van Zandt was right, but because Fritz had missed a procedural step. He hadn't met and conferred properly on the timeline issue before rushing to court. A technical miss. A small crack in the armor. But even with the denial, something important shifted. Because under pressure, Van Zandt essentially gave Wayfair what they wanted. They backed off their timeline objection. They agreed they wouldn't block questions about events before September 2024. On paper, the motion failed. In practice, Fritz walked away with validation. Still, the bigger issue looms. Who will Van Zandt put forward as their corporate witness? Who will actually sit in that chair on September 30th and answer under oath? That remains a mystery. Every delay, every vague answer, every legal objection feels less like a defense and more like a strategy to hide. Behind the polished filings and footnotes, the emotions are raw. Wayfair feels stonewalled. The court feels manipulated. And Van Zandt looks more like a mast and a company as shield for Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. The clock is ticking toward the deposition. And the question is no longer just about timelines. It's about whether the truth will ever be forced into the open. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds may be Hollywood royalty, but in this courtroom battle, they're acting more like ghosts hiding behind lawyers. The emails show that the only people stepping forward for Van Zandt are attorneys. Meanwhile, Blake is spotted enjoying Disney World, and Ryan is off at another glamorous event. They're living their lives while their so-called company, Van Zandt, quietly pushes sham subpoenas and hides behind legal maneuvers. I've asked multiple attorneys if they believe the Van Zandt lawsuit was properly filed. Every single one said no. And here's why. If Blake and Ryan truly believed their issue was with Wayfair and with the movie It End With Us, they would have sued producers directly. They would have gone after Justin Baldoni or the film's team, but they didn't. Instead, they created a shell company, filed a vague lawsuit, and served a subpoena on just one person, Stephanie Jones. Then they used whatever data they got from her to build their case. It feels unfair. It feels abusive. And it looks like a cover-up. To make things worse, the law firm handling Van Zandt suddenly changed. If everything was above board, why the switch? Why the hiding? Why the smoke and mirrors? It's frustrating and frankly suspicious. Wayfair has been stuck playing defense against Blake's endless demands. Her team asked for materials from Signal chats or from private investigators, things that don't even exist. The response is always the same. We can't give you what we don't have. And when she accused an investigative firm of running a smear campaign, the judge flat out told her she had zero proof. Once again, her motion was denied. This isn't the first time she's filed sweeping subpoenas just fishing for information she shouldn't be able to get. So it's no stretch to believe Van Zandt was the same kind of ploy. Meanwhile, distractions flood the media. Headlines pop up about someone getting arrested near Taylor Swift's house, with rumors it was a process server tied to Baldoni. Local outlets don't connect it to Taylor at all, but national tabloids spin the story into chaos. It feels like another tactic, a way to smear Baldoni and pull attention away from the real fight, Van Zandt. And that fight matters, because if the court determines that Van Zandt was just a sham to obtain data improperly, the entire foundation of Blake's case could collapse. All that evidence, those communications, those documents, could be thrown out. That's why Wayfair is pressing so hard to uncover the chain of custody. Who gave what to whom? When? And under what authority? If the answer exposes abuse of process, Blake and Ryan's whole scheme crumbles. Wayfair's motion may have been denied on a technicality, but strategically, it forced Van Zandt to back down and agree to testify. Yet even now, no one knows how much they'll actually reveal. Blake herself only gave a one-line answer when asked about Van Zandt. One line, nothing more. At the heart of this is a fragile stack of evidence. If that stack falls, Blake and Ryan's entire legal offensive may go with it. That's why they're scrambling. That's why they're playing games. And that's why the coming deposition could change everything. In the end, all of this will completely blow up in Blake and Ryan's faces. Because once Wayfair finally gets the answers they've been fighting for, once they secure the evidence that shows this was done with malice and abusive process, the whole scheme unravels. And when that happens, it doesn't just hurt Blake's credibility. It opens the door to brand new lawsuits and a storm of legal trouble that could follow them for years. That's why they're stalling. That's why they're hiding behind lawyers. It's not about justice, it's about survival. And it is painfully obvious. At least that's my take. But what do you think? Is this the moment Blake and Ryan lose control of their own game? Or do you think they'll still find a way to spin it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I really want to hear your take. And if you found this breakdown helpful, make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe, and tap the bell icon so you never miss an update on this wild legal drama. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.